So we're back here in the second video. Hopefully you were able to write down your response to what does it mean to believe. And one of the things that I'm trying to get us to see is that belief isn't this static thing, that either you have it or you don't. That it's much more like building up a muscle or much more like learning to ride a bike than it is finding a bunch of facts, or to say that, again, if you're kind of on the unbelief side, that you want to find these facts that prove God's existence or God's plan for you. And if you're on the belief side, it's sometimes like, well, I'm a believer and therefore, I'm going to follow God blindly. And then maybe there's something else going on here, this dynamism in the middle. Okay. The first thing that Pope Benedict wants us to consider then is, what does it mean to say credo, I believe, right? That's kind of the question that I had you answer in that last video. He says the first thing is that it's a rejection of empiricism. And again, empiricism says that the only things that can be true are the tangible, empirical things we have evidence for, right? And what Benedict says is that the ability to believe is the ability to extend your philosophy, to extend your mind's ability to see things beyond the physical, metaphysical, right? Metaphysical just means beyond the physical. And that doesn't mean like you're getting intact with like the spirits or the spirit world. It just means that things like virtues, like courage and honor and love, are realities that extend beyond the physical. That doesn't mean they're completely non-physical. That there's obviously dimensions to all those that manifest themselves physically, right? But they are truths that extend beyond the physical. But think, if you're someone that's never experienced the love of your parents, right, then it's very hard for you to consider the reality of love as a real thing. But if you're someone that is constantly looking for ways to love, even like, let's say, your best friend or your siblings, it's much easier then for you to see love in the world, even without your physical sight, right? You can sense love in that metaphysical sense. So this is what he means, that belief is the second mode or the second way of accessing reality. That it's a way of perceiving the world, or in Benedict's words, or an orientation to the world that is not just a collective of facts, right? Okay, my mom did this, this, and this, and this for me, therefore she must love me. Like, you know of your mother's love prior to her doing those things, right? Now, you might be confirmed or affirmed in some way when she does, in fact, show her love through physical things. But you know that the love is not the physical things. It actually is just an expression. The physical things are an expression of an already existing reality. And that belief is the muscle that allows you to get into contact with that way of viewing the world, right? And so if you're not praying, if you're not doing the things of belief, of faith, well, then it's very hard to see that reality. In the same way, again, using the bike analogy, if you were to just look at a bike and study the bike and get a bunch of bikes together and look at all of them, you wouldn't know what it is to bike ride, right? You could run a 3D model, you could do projections, you could do the mathematics of how bikes work. It's not the same thing as getting on a bike and having that freedom of the wind blowing through your hair, right? You actually have to go bike riding to experience that. Belief is very similar. So just a few quotes and then we'll conclude this video. Pope Benedict says this: "Indeed, belief is the conversion in which man discovers that he is following an illusion if he devotes himself only to the tangible." And what this means is that the real illusion is to think that the only thing that exists is the tangible world. And in a weird way, the coronavirus has kind of actually shown us this to be true, right? That if the only things that existed were material things, then maybe life isn't really worth living if the coronavirus can infect all these people and shut down the world. But maybe life is worth living, and you're kind of rediscovering that maybe even in your own family life, that there's so many good things to this world that go beyond the physical, that to shut yourself off from them, that's the real illusion. That's the real kind of blindness, right? And we got a picture of a New Orleans graveyard in the background, just to remind you that if you devote yourself only to the tangible, again, Ash Wednesday, from ashes you were born, and from dust, from dust you were born, from dust you will return, right? Okay, next one. Belief is not demonstrable. It is an about turn. Only he who turns about is receptive to it. The best way that I can explain this quote from Pope Benedict is this, right? Is that you must act first in order to see it. And that sometimes if you're just looking for the facts or the proof, you'll never in fact get what you want. And since it's free agency signing period with the NFL, here's the example. If you're the Miami Dolphins, 14, 15 years ago, you look at the demonstrable facts of Drew Brees and you don't want to sign him. He's coming off shoulder surgery. The team that drafted him doesn't even want him. Are you really going to throw a bunch of money at this guy who has no proven ability, right? At least no proven ability left, and say that he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback? Probably not, right? If you're the Saints organization post-Katrina, you've got this view of the world of, well, I've got to take a chance, or maybe you could say this: I see something in Drew Brees that other teams don't because I'm accessing a mode of reality that's not necessarily demonstrable, right? And whether that's interviews with Drew Brees and his own faith in himself, right? Yes, in fact, Drew Brees does go on to show that he is a Hall of Fame quarterback, and we know that from hindsight. But at that moment, right, 15 years ago during free agency period, you don't see that. But if you have this second way of viewing the world, that maybe there's more than just the physical things, you see something in Drew Brees' spirit, his character, that gives you hope, right? And so you say, okay, I'm open to seeing this thing through. Let's try it out. Now, in this case, it worked out. How does it apply to faith? Well, it's kind of like this. If you go back to that view of signs, right? Do you see signs as miracles, or do you see it as chance, right? The Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson scene. Is that if you're open to the possibility first, that there's a world that goes beyond the physical, you're going to start to notice and start to realize the non-physical things of this world. But if you don't make that first turn, you probably will never, in fact, do the thing. Again, the same thing is true with the building the muscle example. Maybe you really want to be strong and in the best shape that you can be, but if you never go to the gym for that first day, and you shouldn't because of the coronavirus right now, but if you never go work out for that first day, you're never going to actually be able to actualize that potential. Okay, so the same thing is true with belief. It's an act of the will. It's not just about collecting facts. Final quote, and then we'll end this video. Our inclination does not cease to point us in another direction. It remains a turn that is new every day. Only in a lifelong conversion can we become aware of what it means to say, I believe. And what Pope Benedict is saying is, in this case, is that don't think it's a once and for all moment. There's a lot of televangelists, kind of some crazy Christians out there that say if you just believe, everything works out. What the Pope is saying is that no, in fact, it's an everyday choice. You've got to choose every day to believe. And that it might be tough, it might be challenging. We're going to see in the next video that he calls it a risky enterprise, that you may not get what you're looking for, but that it's an everyday kind of conversion. And the picture in the background here is a painting from a German painter called Gerhard Richter. And what he'd do is he'd paint a photorealistic painting, and then he'd blur it out. And this is before Photoshop and projector, so this is pretty impressive painting skills. But the idea is that the picture isn't clear. And the only way to get this picture to become clear, or you think of your vocation to become clearer, is to choose every day to believe. Every day to allow that conversion to take place in your heart. The same thing is true, again, if I want to get better at running, right? There was a time when I wasn't running every day. Well, if I want to get better at running, if I want to get faster to win the race, I've got to run every day. And at first, getting up at 4:30 to go running in the morning seems crazy. It doesn't seem like it's what I want. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the better you get, and the clearer that picture, in this sense, the faster you get. But in terms of vocation, the more that you try that mode of reality, that belief, the clearer the picture becomes. So what I want you to do right now is to just give you a preview of the next slide, is again, write down what you think it means to believe. And then we're going to look at, once and for all, kind of what does Benedict mean that belief is an act of the will versus a collection of facts. Okay, so reconsider what it is that you believe, read the notes below, and then I'll see you in the next one.